So your large language model is producing a lot of data, but at some point you've got to evaluate it. Big question, right? No problem. We have the answer here in this new episode of the Cozy AI Kitchen. For anyone who loves Python, I'm sure you've read the book of this next chef we're going to have on the Cozy AI Kitchen. Chef Speight is a principal cloud advocate, a online influencer in AI as well, author, may I say, Python, may I say. Perfect timing for AI. Also background in MRAR. Chef Speight, welcome to the kitchen.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to cook with you today.
Oh my God, your apron is the best apron that's ever been on the kitchen.
Thank you. It's all the way from France. So I love it. It's my favorite apron that I own. I have maybe 3 different aprons, but this one's my most favorite.
I understand you have a background in fashion as well.
Yes, I used to work in luxury fashion before I made a transition into tech. I want to say, oh goodness, has it been 13 years now? I used to be a menswear stylist and a visual merchandiser. So a lot of fun in that space, but more fun now over in tech.
Whew, give me like these goosebumps. Amazing person. All right, so Chef Speight, I know that you have been cooking different things across different technology industries. Now you're deep in AI. Can you tell us a little bit about what's exciting you in AI right now?
I think what's exciting me are just all the possibilities. I know that things are moving very quickly. There's a lot of innovation happening, but honestly, I love it because that always means that something new is happening. And I love to be able to try new things. And as a creative person, I like using a lot of the tools that most of us have heard about to create new things, new stuff, and just finding new ways to be more creative. So that's what makes me super excited, is just that all the innovation that's happening, there's always something new to try out.
Hmm. And when we say the word generative AI, it's generating information. Sometimes it generates good information, sometimes it doesn't. That's where evaluation comes in, I understand.
Yes, exactly. And as much fun as it is to create AI apps, we should evaluate. And it's not something that we do just once. We should do it iteratively. We should do it continuously. Even after we put our app out into the world, we should still do evaluations. Those evaluations are going to help us with figuring out how can we improve our apps? What sort of mitigation should we add to our apps? Do we need to modify anything in the system message? So evaluations, they are crucial if you are creating apps that leverage generative AI models.
Well, in the kitchen, we cook fish sometimes. We get in trouble in the building sometimes, but you always know you have to check the temperature of the fish otherwise, right?
Yes,
I
yes, you
understand that
have
you have a
to.
way to do this evaluation with AI.
Yes, I do. And even better, I also have a way to generate data as well, because in order to do any evaluation, you need data. And whenever we talk about evaluations, some folks think, great, I'll evaluate, but how do I get started? And then when you mention you need data, then the question becomes, well, where does this data come from? And so that's what I'm here to show you today, is how you can generate synthetic data. Now, you don't always have to use synthetic data. If you have actual data from users who have used your app, you can use that as well. But if you're just starting out and you don't actually have those responses or those prompts that your users are providing to your app, you can generate that data as well.
It sounds very exotic, Chef Spade. Please go ahead and proceed and synthesize that data.
Yes, all right, cool. So what I have here is a notebook that I've created for a fictitious Contoso Zoo company. Let's say that Contoso Zoo, they're creating an AI-powered app that helps visitors learn more about the animals that we have in the exhibit. Now, in order to do the evaluations for this, we need to have some synthetic data in order to move forward with our evaluations. And so what I'm going to be using is our simulator for non-adversarial tasks. Now, our simulator can also create a data set for adversarial tasks. The difference is going to be the adversarial tasks are going to be the prompts that you may submit that are quote unquote bad. They're not the positive things that someone may submit to a model, but the non-adversarial ones they're a little more neutral in a way. So that's what I'm going to be doing today.
And Chef
Now,
Speight, do you mind pausing for a
yeah.
second and helping us understand why do we say synthesized data?
Oh, synthetic data.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so
Do you
synthetic.
also
So
have
essentially,
organic data?
you can think of organic data being the actual user data. So
Yeah.
from actual users who use your app, the synthetic data would be like the quote unquote fake data,
I
if you
see.
will.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you. Sorry for
Equally
interrupting.
important though.
Yeah, please go
No,
forward.
no problem. Feel free to ask questions. So here in the notebook, as I continue to scroll down here, because we love security, we want to build secure apps, we shouldn't hard code our keys either. We are using keyless authentication. And so in this notebook, you may see that mentioned a couple places. That's essentially going to eliminate the need for us to hard code our keys. But as we continue to move down, what I'm going to be using is the simulator class from the Azure AI Evaluation SDK. That simulator class is going to be used so that way we can simulate situations. And in our case, we're going to be simulating for non-adversarial tasks, if you will. So moving along, before we can actually set that up, we need to define a couple things in the code. So first I have here the model config. We'll need to pass this into the simulator class. We make an instance of the simulator class. And what that's going to require is going to be the Azure OpenAI endpoint, your key, as well as your deployment, so the model that you're using. In case you're wondering, I'm using GPT-4o for this particular simulation. Now, coming down, this is where I've created the actual instance of the simulator class itself. You pass in that model config that I mentioned. Now here, I'm creating an actual call to the application. And so this particular function, what it's essentially doing is that it's going to send over the information about our model, as well as the prompt that we would submit to the model itself. I have it here in a function that I called call to your AI application. Very simple name here, but you can probably get a little more specific with that. In any case, that's what I have here. That comes in handy later when we go to do the simulations themselves. Now, since we've defined that, we also need to create a callback. Now, the callback's doing some really interesting stuff. As I had here, it's going to handle any incoming messages. It's going to process them using that app, so the code that I shared above, and then it's also going to format the responses to follow the OpenAI chat protocol. So this function, it's going to take the last message in the conversation history, because in this sort of app, what we want it to do or function is our Zoo visitors should be able to have a conversation with the AI that's been integrated into this app. So we need that conversation history. More important, since someone will submit one prompt, we then need to have the AI respond, and then from there, the user can ask another question, the AI responds, so on and so forth. But in order to make that happen, we need that conversation history. Then we're going to reset that context, and then we're going to call the app to get a response based on the latest message.
Can I ask a question about this,
yeah,
Chef Speight, about
you sure
evaluations?
can.
You know, you can
Yeah.
do like a input-output pair evaluation, but if you have a whole history, how do you compare histories to histories?
That's a really great question. So in terms of comparing histories to history, because I want to make sure I'm answering that right. So if you have, let's say, in two separate data sets, you're comparing histories to histories. If you are doing more than one evaluation, you can compare the evaluations against each other. You have the ability to do that, to see how the model not performs, but how the model generates its output. We have ways that you can go back and look at those comparisons in the Azure AI Foundry, and we'll take a look at that shortly so you can see what that experience is like. But if you are passing in the same more or less data set, but maybe you tweaked something in your in the way you configured things, such as like with the system prompt for the model, or maybe using a completely different model, you can compare those two, and then from there you can evaluate which change, if you will, that you made better suits your use case. So that's a way that you could potentially go about doing that.
One more question. You're using this
Yeah.
scary word adversarial, but the
Yeah.
non-adversarial sounds really pleasant. So are we saying friendly
Yes.
versus unfriendly, or yeah?
I would say, whew, I don't know if necessarily friendly is the right term. I like to think of it more as being neutral, if anything. Yeah, because the adversarial, that's where we're going to see a bit more harmful content. We may
Got it.
see
Okay.
some things that are generated that aren't necessarily nice. Now, why is this important? Well, with any app that folks create, as a developer, we think about the happy path. We think about the way that the users should use the app. Well, we can't expect everyone to use the app the way that we designed it to be. So we have to take that into account. Now, historically, you could sit someone at a computer and have them create a bunch of adversarial prompts, if you will. But John, that would take forever, you know? And who wants to sit and spend all day typing icky things in to test later? So we can use AI to actually do that for us. And that's what we're able to use the simulator to do. Now, of
Mm.
course, I'm doing the more neutral way with the non-adversarial, but you can generate those adversarial prompts, if you will, as well with the simulator class and the Azure AI Evaluation SDK.
I see. So you're sort of you're assuring the guardrails might be there.
Yes,
I see.
yes, yes, yes.
Okay,
Yep,
please.
absolutely. Yeah, no problem. So once we have this call back, then we start to get into what happens to be my favorite part, which is the actual conversation starters. So conversation starters are one of the options that you have available if you're using the simulator class. And essentially what you're doing is defining the start of the conversation, which is why they're conversation starters. So in my case, I have two that I've identified. One is for the first simulation, which essentially gives the idea of a person who is like standing in front of an exhibit. In this case, it's a lion exhibit, and they just make a statement saying they've never seen a lion before. Well, that's not a question, right? And
Mm.
typically when folks submit prompts, they're in question format. Again, we can't always expect people to submit things the way that we think they are. So I want to test to see, well, how will AI respond if someone just says a statement? Now, from there, the AI will say whatever it'll say, or it'll generate whatever response it'll generate. And then the next part of the conversation would be the user saying, okay, the lion's much bigger than I thought. Now we have the question, how much do they typically weigh? We then want to get from there whatever the AI generates. Now, for the second simulation, I did this one in particular a little different because I want to see just how contextually aware the model is. And what I mean by that is in the second simulation, we have a parent who's with their child and they're conversing, if you will, with the app, and they say that, oh, their child's fascinated by birds, and they keep asking about the feathers. Now, what I want the AI to do, John, is actually respond in a way that's digestible for a child. Because even though
Ah.
the parent's asking the question, essentially the parent would be relaying this information to their child. We don't want the AI to provide high level, doctorate level information about birds because
Mm.
we're speaking to a child in this case. So this is why the second simulation was set up in that way.
I see.
Now, once you defined your conversation starters, you're going to do a call to that simulator that we created earlier. And then we identified how many turns we had. The turns, in this case, if I scroll back up here, as you can see, I have three different lines within each of the simulations. So that means I have three turns for each one.
Hmm.
Now, once I do the simulation, from there, we're going to get a response back from the model. Now, I don't have the actual output of that here to show today, but what I did, however, was I saved that output into its own list, and then I converted that output into a format that we can pass in when we do our evaluations. That
Okay,
I do
Chef
have to
Speight,
show
one
you
second.
today.
JSON-L. Help our
Yes, those are
watchers get
JSON
it. They say
lines.
JSON? JSON-L? What's the difference?
Yeah. So these are JSON lines. These are one of the formats that you can use when you are formatting your data set for your evaluations. What does that look like? here in my Zoo Conversations file, I have an example.
Yep.
Essentially, we have the query, and then right after that, we have the response, and they're literally here in lines. Now, depending on the metrics that you plan to use for your evaluations, you may need additional information in terms of what's included in your data set. But because I'm going to do evaluations for fluency, coherence, and then our content safety metrics, or our risk and safety metrics, I only need the query and the response here. But again, JSON-L is going to be one of the formats that's supported when you're passing in your data set for the evaluation.
Sort of
And
like
so,
JSON-L is kind of like CSV, sort of, isn't it?
yes, it is pretty much, yes, very similar. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
So this is what it looks like. And the way that I got this was because that output that we got from the model when it simulated the conversations, well, I created my own converter to actually format the data in what you saw in this JSON-L file. Now, I think today we actually do have a function in the evaluation SDK that will do that conversion for you. But when I was testing things out a while ago, I created one from scratch, as one does. And so it gave me the format that I need here. So this file, we are going to set where that's located. We're going to assign it to our path variable. And now we're going to get to a point where we can start to do our evaluations. Before we get to the evaluations, we do need to configure the Azure AI project. And that project's important. Why? Well, we're going to actually view the results in Azure AI Foundry. You can view the results here in the terminal, which is just fine. But Azure AI Foundry is going to give you some more functionality in terms of you have a visual difference. You can also compare your evaluations as well. And it helps with keeping track of your evaluations too. So you will have to configure the Azure AI project, and then that's going to later be passed in when we do the evaluation. Now, before getting there, we need to create instances of the evaluators themselves. All these evaluations are part of the Azure AI Evaluation SDK, and they are AI-assisted evaluations. Now, AI-assisted evaluations, you're probably thinking, what's that? What does that mean? Well, we're leveraging AI to assist in doing the evaluations. What we do is we pass in a prompt to the AI for what our assessment scale is for the evaluation, and we're leveraging a model to do the evaluations for us. And so that's in its shortest way to describe what our AI-assisted evaluators are. Now, we're almost towards the end. So we're going to do the call to evaluate that data set. And when you're setting this up, this is where you define all the metrics that you want to use for the evaluation. Now, although we have an assortment of evaluators between like our performance and quality evaluators and our risk and safety evaluators, you can also do custom evaluators too. So if I wanted to, evaluate for friendliness, which would be appropriate for this particular use case, I can evaluate for that. And even better, John, I can define what friendliness even means. I could say what it means to be a 1 versus a 5, or whatever scale I'm defining. So you can do that too. And you can view that over in Azure AI Foundry. So let's say from here, I went on ahead, I did the evaluation, and this one didn't take too long. There was a lot that occurred, but this one actually didn't take entirely too long. But the output, what we have is this link that'll take us into Azure AI Foundry. So should I head over to Azure AI Foundry to view the results?
You've plated the meal so well. Let's see it come out of the oven. There we go.
Yes, hot evaluation out the oven, and here we are. So this is Azure AI Foundry, and this is what an evaluation looks like once you have the evaluation available for view here. So from what I see here, we are evaluation for coherence and fluency. The highest score you can get for these is going to be a 5. Now, if you run an evaluation and you have 5s across the board, that's great. But what I'll tell you to do is more evaluations. You don't stop just because you hit quote unquote perfection. You're going to continue to evaluate. In my case, I'm almost at a 5, which is also good, not bad, but that goes to show you that there's potentially some room for improvement. Now, if you don't know what coherence and fluency is, you're probably looking at this and thinking, what do these terms even mean? And so coherence, I would say, is more related to, I like to think of when I think of the term coherent. Does the output make sense? Yeah, exactly. And then fluency, I think of that as, does the output flow? is it flowing logically? So that's what we're assessing. Whereas our risk and safety ones, we actually did very well. Now, this you do want to score relatively well on, because you want to make sure that the model itself isn't generating harmful content. And in this case, I have very low across the board, which is great. Now, to dive in a little more, in this data tab, this is where I can see all of the queries that were submitted, the responses that I got from the model, what the assessment is, and then also I get a reason as well. So if I scroll this over, we can see here, this is why this first query and response received a 5 for fluency. And then we have a nice little detailed explanation here. So if you're doing evaluations, I highly recommend trying things out with the Azure AI Evaluation SDK. If you don't have data to start your evaluations, that's no problem. It shouldn't stop you, because as I just showed you, you can generate synthetic data, and you can use that data as well when you're doing your evaluations.
Wow, so synthetic data is the fast path to doing some very fancy evaluations. So wow, I'm just sort of like thinking about this thermometer we got in the kitchen, and now it's the thermometer's gotten sort of turbocharged. I hope this is a 5. But anyways, so when you think of the future, Chef Speight, so by the way, thank you for that incredible demonstration. And
oh, you're welcome.
The notebook pages are sort of so beautiful. So I can see that you are a chef of Python notebooks at a whole different level. Yummy. But when we think about how different developers are finding their way to AI, and also non-developers, a little afraid, they'll hear words like adversarial or some sort of complex word about AI is going to like change everything in my life in a bad way. What do you say to them as a leader in this space? People, I'm sure, when they see you out there online, they think, I want to be like Chef Speight. What advice do you give them?
Yeah, so what I would say is approach AI in a very understanding way. What do I mean by that? So we hear a lot about what the possibilities are with AI and some of the ways that folks are using generative AI today. And I would say let's keep an open mind on what the possibilities could be. With every new technological innovation, there's going to be positive uses, there's going to be negative uses as well. I like to focus more on the positive use cases, because I would say there's going to be more positive than negative use cases for tech. And so let's keep an open mind in terms of what the possibilities could be. And I also think that knowledge is power. So as you're hearing about different AI terms, or you happen to come across something that looks interesting, take the time to get to learn what it is. I will definitely say the more you spend time learning about AI, it definitely gives you a different point of view. It definitely gives you a different perspective. And it also hopefully gets you more excited to try things with AI, whether you're building with AI or you're just an everyday AI user.
Well, thank you for sharing your cooking, your recipes, your style. And for all of you out there, Chef Speight is out there online with incredible video content that's going to help you become an AI expert in no time. Thank you, Chef Speight. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.